Today, I'm coming to you from Halifax. We just jumped in the 2023 Ford Mustang Mach-E rear-wheel drive with a standard range battery, and we drove from Charlottetown to Halifax. That distance is pretty much 348 kilometers. Had to look down at my notes. And that is beyond the range of the small standard battery. That battery this time of year in the winter, it would get me about 330 kilometers. So I had to stop and charge. Depending where those chargers were, I would have loved to have made one stop. Given the location of the chargers, I did have to stop twice. That's 40 minutes that my wife can't get back. The hybrid would have done it arguably cheaper, but we got here without a much smaller, not without any carbon footprint, with a smaller carbon footprint. So, what are numbers like? My estimate was between 45 and 50 kilowatt hours of energy would be required. It turns out that I stopped at Electrify America for this trip. My first trip down this way, I was going to the Halifax airport and I used the Flow network. They top out at 50 kilowatts. Now I decided to come down and I tried the Electrify Canada network. They have in Amherst and in Damascus in Nova Scotia. There's also the Irving big stop that's halfway in between, just going to be great. This time I stopped at Electrify America and I did go ahead and pay $7 for the monthly fee, which gives you a discounted rate. So instead of 60 kilowatt hours, 60 cents per kilowatt hour, I got to pay 48 cents per kilowatt hour. If I stopped at the Irving Big Stop, I would pay 45 cents per kilowatt hour. So small difference, but that being said, remember if you have to pay with and without the membership fee. It turns out that putting in 45 kilowatt hours of energy, I've already saved $7 instead of paying 60 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm paying 48. So I've saved pretty much on the trip down the membership fee for the month, which I won't continue next month when I'm not intending to DC fast charge anymore. When it comes to those two DC fast charging sessions to get me here, the first session was 25 minutes and I onboarded 26.4 kilowatt hours of energy, and that took me from 43 to 79%. During that, when I plugged in at 43%, I pretty much stayed around 80 kilowatt hours being delivered, and it never peaked more than that, and it dropped right around 78% down to 25 kilowatt hours. It was time to unplug and go. So we went ahead and did that. During this time, these EA chargers are at the Canadian Tire. Marginal interest in the family for walking around in Canadian Tire. We use the washrooms. They went to another store that was there at Amherst, Giant Tiger, and that was more entertaining. In the hybrid, we would have not have had to stop. Approaching Nova Scotia, getting to Damascus, there was another EA charger. I had to stop and top up there for another 10 minutes. Compared to the first stop, where we stopped for 25 minutes and onboarded 25 kilowatt hours of energy, I stopped for 10 minutes and onboarded 20 kilowatt hours on the second stop. The difference being I plugged in at 14% and we plugged out at 40 or 42%. It's much faster to charge the battery at a low state of charge. That's why on another future trip, and given how much I may save on the Electrify America anyways, I would probably still go ahead and stop at the Irving Big Stop on another trip. Not sure what that would be like. I might do it just there on the way back. We are going to be leaving from the north side of Halifax, so the trip back home will be a little bit shorter. The hotel over there, our second hotel, has an overnight charger, level 2 charger. This first hotel does not. That meant that at my second charging stop, I had to stay there longer than intended, or I would have skipped that altogether if I could have charged here. So that being said, half an hour, 35 minutes, depending on your situation when you get to your destination. If I was able to charge here, that would have cut out the charging time because I'd be plugged in at the hotel now. We cannot charge here overnight, so I had to stay long enough to put in enough extra energy for running around tomorrow until I get to the overnight charger. That being said, given where we're going to start from tomorrow, the day after, and head back home, I should only need the one charging stop at either the Irving or ideally, I'm going to stop at the same Amherst station. I'll be at a much lower state of charge, and we're going to onboard energy very quickly. top up there once, and get back to Charlottetown. So that's the goal. If you want to know what that 40, so that 46 kilowatt hours of energy costed me. Ooh, I'll have to look it up. I wish. So $25. Now remember. So that amount of energy cost $25. And that's what it took to get me down here. It'd be very similar in the hybrid, very similar in a gas car, because a gas car is pretty efficient. So what you're seeing on these road trips is because I'm paying a much higher rate for electricity, that eats into the economy, but I did get all that electricity fairly quickly instead of waiting overnight like you have to do with a slower, cheaper electric charge. So I didn't mind the 40 minutes. It wasn't that bad. We got outstretched our legs. If I road tripped a lot more frequently, I would have bought something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5, which has a much faster peak for their rate. At the second charge stop, the rate went up to 150 was right on the max. At the first charge stop, it was only 80 kilowatt max. So as you see, the lower state of charge, I got up to that 150 kilowatt max or 112 on my LFP small range battery in the Mach-E, and it pretty much held it till I unplugged at that 40%. The battery was warm, it was on the road, it plugged in a low state of charge, and it charged in 10 minutes, and I was away. So technically, some people might say over that one trip, it was 4, we left at 12, we got here around 4:30. So 4.5 hours, including 35 minutes of charging. It's usually a 4 hour versus a 4.5 hour trip. That's worth different things to different people. But if you are interested in electrification, even with the small standard range battery, you can get from Charlottetown to Halifax, stopping for an extra half hour. And our current conditions were just below freezing. It was below freezing the entire trip, but -2 and really sunny, a real mild day for traveling compared to what we usually do. So -2, which is below freezing, we had the heat on, family was comfortable, and the average was roughly between 22 and 25. I think we did 24 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That being said, again, depending who you are, either EVs either are ready or they're not. I could have definitely, if I did this more often, we could have purchased the larger battery in the Mach-E, which would have given us the extra range to get all the way. Still depends on what you're doing. I always talk about charging where you're already at. True, tonight at this hotel, I'm not able to charge where I'm at. I paid for the DC fast charger and I have the energy on board. Tomorrow I'll charge where I'm at. While I'm running around Halifax, I know I'll be within the range of different fast chargers. There's a few flow chargers. If I have to plug into a 50 kilowatt hour, I will. But if I have the option, I'll plug into something like an Irving charger. They're all the way out on the road. That's 180 kilowatts. And the Electrify Canada chargers charge up to 350 kilowatts. My Ford Mach-E with the standard range battery only tops out, I thought it was 115, but on the app I saw a peak of about 150. That being said, hey, I enjoyed getting here in the EV, much smaller, reduced carbon footprint, even if it's not completely eliminated. What it's worth is worth different things to different people, but I gotta say, I'm enjoying my electric car. I don't think my wife will take the option to take the electric car again. Different people. I enjoyed it. Other people may not find that half an hour difference over 350 kilometers worth it, but I don't know what else to say. I enjoyed the car. The Ford Mach-E, great road trip car. Okay road trip car. Would be better if it charged faster. I personally do not road trip often. We do this a couple times a year, if that much. So that 40 minutes was okay. Until next time, let's stay connected.